I think I knew I wanted to be an actor since I was something around 8. I went to see my dad in a play in suburban Detroit, Michigan. And it was some outdoor theater, the St. Dunstan's Theater Group. And my dad was in this play, and he was just acting weird. He was acting happy and silly and goofy. He was dancing with women that weren't my mother. And I thought, yeah, that looks good. My dad was the first investor of the first Evil Dead movie, so they were all over it. My dad wanted to be a painter. And I think his father, who worked for Alcoa Aluminum, was like, no, I don't think so. You go get a job. And so he got into advertising, which was, you know, creative. But he wanted more of an outlet, so he got into theater. And so when I said I want to be an actor, they went, go for it. I think of all the Raimis, I met Sam Raimi first. I met him in 1975 in the middle of drama class. We were both doing pantomimes, and I thought his sucked, and he thought mine sucked. So we talked about how each other's pantomimes sucked and how to improve it. And then we just got to talking, and he said that he made little 8mm movies in his neighborhood, and I work with a group of guys in our neighborhood. And so we started to hook up on weekends and bring each other's stuff. Some guys had cameras, other guys had lights and costumes. I had costumes because I had access to my dad's theater group. I had a key, so I could get in and rip off military outfits and bring them back on Sunday night, and it was perfect. So then I met, of course, Sam's younger brother, Ted, who I used to babysit and take to cello lessons. I guess if I wanted to eat at the Raimis, I had to do something. So. And then Rob Tappert I met about 1978 when he was going to Michigan State with Sam. I think Sam Raimi met Rob at college, and then I met him just working on a couple Super 8 movies, including one that Rob Tappert starred in that he'll never star in another movie ever, but hopefully it gave him renewed respect for actors, called The Happy Valley Kid, about a student who's driven insane, a college student. And Sam and Rob made a bag full of dough off that money in college, off that film. Yeah, there was another character, Scott Spiegel, who was also involved in the early filmmaking stuff. So it was Sam Raimi, myself, Scott, and really about 3, 4 other guys, John Cameron, guys who are still working today in the industry. I think I was working with Scott Spiegel first because it was all about neighborhoods. You met the guys who were in your neighborhood first. So Scott was a big fan of the Three Stooges. So there were a lot of Three Stooges ripoffs. And then I met Sam, and I told Scott, hey, this Sam guy is crazy. We should use him. You know, he'll do anything, stunts or whatever. So he would come involved. I think Sam's first thing was like around 75. We brought him in as like a bit player. And we thought, yeah, this guy's good. He'll take a pie in the face or whatever. So then we expanded, and we got more serious. I don't think any of us went to the prom because we were, I think, shooting a Super 8 movie that night. It was way more interesting than Chicks. I mean, it's different now, but yeah, we did all these Super 8 movies pretty much. I mean, Scott was making movies since the late 60s. I started doing little frame-by-frame animation in the early 70s, and Sam was doing magic shows, and it was all in the suburban Detroit area. And it carried through till about like 78 or 79, and then we finally decided, well, we've done so many of these stupid movies, like 50 different movies, let's make one professional movie that we actually try and sell. We never sold the other ones because we couldn't. We ripped off the Jaws music, and you know, every composer in Hollywood would be after us if we tried to sell them because we wanted to make our movies with the coolest music. So we ripped off from the best. But we figured since we want to finally make one for real, it was a whole new ballgame. So that was the first Evil Dead. The Evil Dead was a very grueling shoot. It was a 12-week shoot. It was only supposed to be a 6-week shoot. But we just had no idea what we were doing, so it went horribly long, mostly night shoots. Probably the worst night was, I had a problem with the fake blood. It was all Caro syrup, so it was sticky. When it would dry and congeal, and if I wanted to readjust my shirt, I'd take a whole shank of hair with it. So there was one time shooting all Saturday night, since we shot at night. Come Sunday morning, we're in, you know, Morristown, Tennessee, the buckle of the Bible Belt, and people are going to church, and I couldn't sit in a car because I was covered with fake blood, and I couldn't take my clothes off because it was stuck to the hair of my. So I just got in the back of the open bed of this white pickup truck that we had, looking like a Charles Manson killer, going past everyone on their way to church, you know, waving, because what are you going to do, you know? And they're like, oh my God! And it was a horrifying. And then so to get the clothes off, I just turned the hot shower on and walked into the shower with all my clothes on. It was the only way to get the clothing off. But it's a glamour. That's what I'm in it for. There's a lot of urban myths that went around, and a lot of them were perpetuated by us about what happened to me during the making of Evil Dead. We told one lie that really worked for years and probably perpetuated even the question of whether I broke my jaw or not. And that was, the end of the movie is a really cool shot where this evil POV comes racing through the woods, goes all the way through the cabin, through all these doors, and then spots me outside, comes racing up, all the way up to my face, and just we cut to black. And it's a cool ending for a movie. And we had to figure out how to get that shot. And it was a difficult shot to get under any circumstances, but we decided just to lie about how we got it. So we said that it was the very last shot we were going to shoot chronologically, because we knew someone was going to get injured. So it was Sam on a motorcycle. We mounted the camera on a motorcycle, and he just raced through the doors and just slammed into me, and that I chipped a tooth, and you know, I think I cracked a couple ribs, and Sam hurt his knees, and we wrecked the camera and got sued by the company. So we made up a bunch of good lies, and it took a while. It took about 10 years to get out there, and then finally it circled back around of, so we hear you. I hear you lost a tooth. I hear you broke your ribs. I hear you broke your jaw. So Sam, and I think it's probably because Sam's been lying on the other end too. He's been telling his lies. I've been telling my lies, and no one will ever really know what happened. And now we just refuse to tell what happened. You know, Evil Dead it still is a fairly obscure series of horror films, but it's gotten more and more into books. That's how you can tell. As you get a book, you get these compilations of horror films of the 70s. You know, you just want to make sure, okay, how good we're in there. At first, we just started to appear in them. And then later, it's where they sort of group you with, you know, this scary moment in these series of horror films, or the scariest 20 movies. You just need a lot of time for that to settle in, because at first, to most people, it was just a cheeseball, low budget, really hard to watch exploitation movie. Although I have to say, to me that the one thing that proved to me that it was getting into the psyche a little bit, the Evil Dead series, was that Army of Darkness showed on American Movie Classics. I went, okay, so are they calling Army of Darkness an American? You know, it's like Ben-Hur and Army of Darkness. Are they going to play those two in a double bill? The shoot of Army of Darkness was fairly interminable as well. We found out later, we shot for like 103 days, which was the same shooting schedule as Back to the Future Part 3. So it was here's this low budget movie that's like 12, 13 million bucks, and we're shooting as much as a big Hollywood movie. It's really just the way Sam Raimi shoots. Everything is an epic. If you have villagers in a shot of villagers, he wants to know how many villagers we've hired for the day. If you got 30, he wants 30 in every shot. He doesn't care how he gets them there. He finds out how many banners we have. How many banners we have? We have 40 banners. Get 40 banners in the shot. And so he was all about maximizing his frame, which takes a while to shoot because you're always dressing your shot to whatever you've got. So again, we didn't really know that much at the time. It just seemed like another Sam Raimi long, grueling shoot where I had a big, thick book that I read during the shooting of it, and I would lie on my back because I was always covered with crap, so I'd put a towel down and lie in my trailer waiting to shoot. And I'd put it on my chest, which was always covered with blood or mud or soot or dirt or something. And so I could tell what we were filming as I look at the book. It's like the rings of a tree. It's like, oh, that was a real bloody section, because a little band of paper would have like a reddish tint. Other stuff would be like a dark gray band. And I go, we were shooting the pit sequence during that. I remember that. So that's how I marked my time. Well, here's a scoop with Dead Next Door. Dead Next Door is a giant Super 8 movie I don't know how it got to be the way it became, but the idea was a filmmaker wanted to make a feature-length feature film in Ohio, this guy J.R. Bookwalter. And so he got the financing for it, and it wound up being this kind of epic low-budget movie. So it was very strange. It was almost unwatchable because of how low budget it was, of the physical image quality. It was Super 8 with like golf ball size, grain. And they did the best they could to edit it on video, but it had to be transferred and it wasn't quite done right. And everything about it was sort of never meant to be, but this kid wanted to finish this movie. So sometimes you can't help it. You make a Super 8 movie and you think, this is good enough to be a feature film. And it turned out to be quite the folly. So I hope people enjoy it. We had to replace every bit of dialogue in the entire movie. Every word that everyone said was useless from a quality standpoint. So I did the post-production sound on it, and I pretended that it was a silent movie. So I got all my friends who were actors and said, all right, you're playing the professor, I'll play this guy, you play the guard number 2, and it went from there. What appealed to me about Bubba Hotep, it was a story about old, beaten down, sick, not rich, girls don't even know who he is anymore, Elvis. And I like that because that gives the character somewhere to go. You start at the bottom. And just the whole story kind of got me that it wasn't a movie that I was going to see on an airplane. And to me, I interpreted that as a good thing. It wasn't a generic kind of film that you could easily show anywhere. This was a movie that the writer had an opinion, and he wasn't politically correct, Joe Lansdale, and Don Coscarelli is a very fastidious filmmaker, and I liked all the combination of the events. It wasn't an easy movie to make. It was excruciatingly low budget, but it was so worth it. Man with a Screaming Brain is its own weird, twisted beast. That's something that I'm embarrassed to say. The first time the idea was given to my partner, David Goodman, was in a rowboat by a friend of ours in 1986. So by the time it comes out, it'll be almost 20 years by the time it comes out on DVD. And it got half financed, quarter financed, 2/3 financed, something fell out, I wasn't available. You name it, it happened. I'm gonna try and do some special stuff on the extras for the DVD to explain to people what a ridiculous journey it was. And then of course, I wind up shooting it in Sofia, Bulgaria, former Eastern Bloc country, in the summer of '04. So it finally got made, and we'll see what people think of that epic.
What was rule number 1?
Stay in the car.
The original story was basically, a suburban banker who falls for this hot Latino woman, and he winds up getting part of the brain of a Latino street hustler, so he can speak Spanish, and he knows where he is, and it's a very strange fish out of water kind of deal. When we found out we were shooting in Sofia, Bulgaria, it wasn't a choice. If you want to make this movie, you shoot in Bulgaria. Well, all of the actors are going to be talking like this, so you have to go, okay, am I still pretending this is East LA? Where are the people of color coming from? Where are the Latinos? Am I going to say that a gypsy guy is Latino? Latinos would be outraged at that, especially in this day and age. So I went, forget it. I'm rewriting it. It's Bulgaria.
Excuse me. Sorry.
Have I seen you before?
No.
I think I have. I never forget a beautiful woman. Have a nice day. This story is an American fish out of water in Bulgaria, the ugly American in a foreign country, and let's just see what happens. What would it take to keep you on call today?
$200 US?
I'll give you $150.
Cash?
Of course.
Plus gas, food, and cigarettes.
No, I don't smoke. You have to buy your own damn cigarettes. So I went with the capitalist, communist, KGB, right-wing executive kind of combination. And I think it was fine because my actors didn't have to fake an accent. They didn't have to pretend, hi, I'm from Portland, buddy, how are you? That kind of stuff never works for me. So it took a whole change. The whole movie changed. Are you doing that? I have no control over it.
Looks like it.
I control the right, I guess.
From now on, I suggest we stop using I or me. It's we.
Okay. What do we do now? You know, I get a call from the producers. They go, we noticed that there's a lot of night shooting in this. I went, yeah, you read the script, good. They went, ooh, boy, that's gonna be tough. I'm like, what, you never shot at night in Bulgaria? They went, not much, no. And so, again, I adapted the story to take place, just this crazy story that really was meant to take place mostly at night, got switched over to daytime. And then the producers keep coming back. They go, I noticed the story takes place over a 3-day period. I go, yeah. Well, there's 3 different costume changes. And I'm like, really? You really want me to try and make this story happen in 1 day so no one has to change any clothes ever? Yeah, could you consider that? So the movie's completely different from what it was originally designed to be. It doesn't make it bad, though. It just means that as a filmmaker, you have to tap dance, especially as a low-budget filmmaker. If this was like Spider-Man 9, I could go, no, we're shooting in this state. This is how we're shooting. This is how many days I'm shooting. But in the low-budget world, you don't really get that option. It was either no Screaming Brain or Bulgaria Screaming Brain. Knots Landing was my first venture into television, and I walked into the office. It was my first audition for this brand new agent. I got it right away, and I went, this TV thing is easy. I auditioned just to play some assistant, and I was only in, I think, 2 episodes, and it terrified me and horrified me because I was used to coming from low-budget movies where everyone's sweating and gritty, and you pick up the camera and you haul it around, and this was, you know, Michelle Lee was the star of the show, and she kind of ran the show. She's like, hi, Ben, how are you? I went, it's Bruce. Yeah, whatever. Okay, you're sitting here, I'm sitting here, you'll say this, you'll do that. They do 1 take. I'm like, what? 1 take? You did 1 take? And they asked the camera guys, they go, hey, how's that? Okay for you guys? They didn't care about the actors. They didn't care if we fumbled our lines. I should have shoved a finger up my nose because it's the only way to get them to not just do it quickly. But that was television at the time, and I went, oh my God. I didn't do TV for 5 years after that. I ran screaming from it because they plucked my eyebrows. The makeup guy goes, you know, if I pluck between your eyebrows, you'll look a lot more intelligent. I went, what? And I wore so much makeup. I got home that night. My wife goes, you're prettier than I am. Just with the layer of crap, and everyone was perfect. Their hair had to be like sprayed. It was the last of the hairspray. Just spray, spray, spray. Everything is put in place, and it was so different than independent movies. I crawled back. Finally, it took years to get me interested in television again. It just seemed too awful and antiseptic. Well, here's what I liked about The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. was that it was, again, an off-kilter story. I think it could have only been developed by Fox at the time. They were the only ones doing X-Files and weird shows like that. We were the lead-in for X-Files. I think they found their audience, and we found Oblivion. But it was just fun to star in a TV show. I'd never starred in a TV show, and to just feel what that was like. It was really a whirlwind of a year. And this was on a show that started strong and then kind of petered out. So I got a sense of what it was like for a show that was popular at first, and how you're doing promotion every weekend. I was off to a different city doing something and doing live feeds at 6 a.m. to Europe, you know, broadcasting live to Israel, be funny. And you're like, wow. So it was an interesting way to learn how the machine of it all. But the grueling pace of it, when they canceled it, I danced the jig because I'm like, I get my life back. I can go reintroduce myself to my wife and kids. Briscoe was canceled in '94, and so I was unemployed, and I knew that Rob Tapper was starting with this Hercules series down in New Zealand. And, you know, I had just did 26 episodes, and you get an idea of how these things are filmed. And so I called my buddy Rob. I said, Rob, look, come on. Let me direct one of these things. How bad could it be? I just worked on a period action show where the lead guy is a single lead character. Kevin Sorbo is like my age. We grew up in the Midwest together. How bad could it be? Let me direct one of these first episodes, one of these early episodes. He went, all right. So I directed it, and it seemed to go okay. I got another couple. And then in '95, he asked me to come down to play Autolycus for the first time in Hercules. And then, so I worked on those shows, and then Xena came in. I don't know the exact year, but as soon as they were in, within the first season, Autolycus, who's one of the few characters who actually went between the two shows, he started to go to Xena. So I'd have those days where I'd do a Hercules episode in the morning, blah, 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 and they'd go, quick, get in the van. And I had to race across set. Hi, Lucy. Hi, Renee. Aha, aha, you know, doing some stupid scene. And that was my day. I felt like an old contract player. We're here, you're on studio 26, go to studio 13. I thought it was very exciting. Because I had the same outfit most of the time. So I could just put on my regular outfit and go from set to set. You know, I have a theory about whether an actor creates the character, whether the writer does. Obviously, the writer is laying out the whole thing for the most part. So the writer shapes it. But in television, especially in series television that goes on for a long time, what'll happen is the writers will start to see what the actor does well. And they'll go, he sucks at comedy. No more comedy for him. And you'll see that their character might get more serious. Or if they ask them to do something like fall in a river or pull your pants off and they liked it, they go, let's do more of that pull your pants off stuff. And they would, or if they liked how you said lines or delivered certain lines, they just would write more for you. So it's whatever you sucked at would go away generally because they wouldn't trust you anymore, or whatever they thought you were decent at, they'd have you do. And then there was other requirements. It didn't matter who sucked at what. The show required action. So really every actor they cast had to do a certain amount of action. So it wasn't like I could just show up and go, ha ha ha. I had to learn fight scenes and all that crap. And these guys were very ambitious. They didn't fool around. Yeah, I'd never directed television before Hercules and Xena, and I was really fascinated in the process of making films with Sam Raimi and Rob Tapert. We were always involved in the whole process, all along the way, so I was interested more than in just acting, and I thought, great, let me just try and get behind so I don't have to be in front of the camera too. And it was really fun to just kind of hide out. I started directing more of the Hercules the more the season went on, and then not too many, just a couple of the Xena shows. I think my sensibilities, I think they wanted me more on Hercules because, you know, I specialize more in the dumbbell episodes. And I remember it's so funny, the show Key to the Kingdom is always one of the most reviled episodes by the fans. They go, that episode sucks.
Pearls before swine. Where are you, my little beauty?
I'm like, shut up. I was brought in to do a dumbbell episode, so that's what you're going to get. You know, I can't help it if the Xena that they aired just before it is, oh, Gabrielle, you're dying, or some dramatic thing, you know. This was called Key to the Kingdom about, you know, with a dumbbell version of the Meg character that Lucy played, and Joxer was in it. So if Joxer's in it, and I've known Ted since he was 9, there's no way that we're not going to do stuff. So I'm sure we got out of control and the fans didn't like it, but the hell with them.
You'd be surprised what a young nubile guard will scream out when he's about
To meet his maker.
Yeah, well, you seem to have a talent. What's your interest in this?
I worked it out. It's all even, Steven. I get half, she gets half, and you get half. Yeah. Ow!
Just what I thought. It's hollow. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Thrasos ruled by 2 extremely greedy warlords? Ormeston and this Kryptos character? How are you gonna get around them, huh?
Hello.
That's why Meg's dressed like Xena. Look, Joxer the Mighty brings Xena, warrior princess, and Autolycus, the king of thieves.
AKA Mr. Stinky.
Well, I have to say it's the weird thing when shows go for a long period of time. Stuff happens. You know, Kevin Sorbo's in Hercules. It's on its whatever season. It's doing well. Boom, he gets an aneurysm, and you know he saw the big light coming. So it was scary. So there was a period where he was not working. Period. So the poor writers, I give them a lot of credit. They were tap dancing as fast as they can. They did modern day episodes. I was just laughing about one the other day, Porcules, where Hercules gets turned into a pig by Ares. So all you have to, but then what they don't realize is, great, we solved the problem, no Kevin Sorbo, but shooting with a pig was the biggest nightmare you could ever imagine because it was always making noise and its little hoofs would stick into you. And one time it just took off. They had to make it a special little Hercules outfit. And this thing is going, it just threw it bucked and these little tiny Hercules pants went tumbling through the air. I mean, and they couldn't see. So Michael Hurst has to walk along with Hercules. They always do these, what they call a walk and talk. Well, he's walking, they're shooting him from behind. He's got a milk jug in his hand and he's shaking it because he's got pig food in there. And he's going, piggy, 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 piggy. I mean, so they solved one problem but created other problems. The same with Xena. Lucy was doing an appearance on Jay Leno. Horse slipped out from under her. She broke her pelvis. And here's a woman who's got to be fighting and riding horses and beating the crap out of men. And they went, oh, Lucy's down. So, you know, boom, all of a sudden, now let's see, she inhabits Autolycus's body. That's it. So I used to kind of get a kick out of how they were trying to cover for the fact that they're the two big stars of their show. And these are people who are in wall to wall in the episodes. And then they'd ease them back in. I remember they'd bring in Lucy and they'd put her on a rock and she'd be like sharpening her sword because she could barely stand up. And Kevin, when he started to come back, it was a real restriction of hours. So those episodes wound up being, Autolycus, Aeolus, take care of things, I'm going to Thrace. And then he would just disappear. We'd have a crazy adventure. And then he'd come back at the end going, how'd everything go? Oh, fine, Hercules, you didn't miss a thing. So it was a fun period, but I really pitied the writers because it was just a terrible time for them. And both, you know, Kevin and Lucy, I really felt for them because the pressure is get better now, get better now. And with an aneurysm, you go, yeah, how's that supposed to work? So they both did a really good job of coming back. That's difficult. I think some of the crap that they put us through for these different episodes, I think was I think it was for a lot of reasons. One was, you know, you had stars that came and went that had injury problems and this and that, so you had to write around that. So I think most of the ridiculous stuff that we did was mainly because of they were just trying to come up with ways to fill these shows. So I thought the modern day episodes that they did on both shows were really bizarre and different, and everyone was excited to do them, including the design team, because they went, oh, thank God, don't have to do chariots or some stupid warlord's palace, you know, we can do like an office. And it was actually very challenging because for the modern day episodes, you know, in New Zealand, the cars drive on the opposite side. So if you had any shot outside, you had to, signs were all different, the paper's different, the phone systems are different. So it was actually just as challenging when we did the modern day episodes to get it to look normal, because New Zealand, to everyone's eyes, is not really normal. And then other times I think it was just a writer's revenge of, you know, I remember like giving some batch of notes on some past script, and then the next script that came in was having us doing something really retarded. I'm like, okay, obviously we pissed somebody off somewhere. But the funny thing is that the real problem we had to reconcile early on was that the writers are in Los Angeles and the show is in New Zealand. Well, it's a different hemisphere. I mean, the weather is different. So if you're in July and you're sweating in your office in Hollywood, Hercules dives into the lake, swims across. Well, July in New Zealand, the rain is going sideways. And many times, you know, Michael Hurst and Kevin Sorbo and Lucy and Renee would have to do these things like being in the beach and walking in the water and streams and rivers when it's the dead of winter for them. So we had to beg the writers, you know, hey guys, this is a different time period here. You know, you got to be aware of that because you're killing us down here. But I think even having different challenges was just a way to, made it better as an actor. You never knew what kind of episode they were going to do. It wasn't like a soap opera. You never really knew what the next episode was. It was always going to be a giant or, you know, some crazy creature, or you're going to go on some adventure, or, yeah, dress up like a woman and take your clothes off. Oh, I feel that between Xena and Hercules, I was horribly spoiled during that 6-year period down there, because it made me realize that what a great setup they had. You know, with Eric Grundeman and Chloe, the producers who really kept the show going. They had, you know, a New Zealand producer and American producers, and they don't get the credit that they should. Because a lot of the crew members went on to do Lord of the Rings. That's how qualified they all were. The camera people really taught me a discipline of how to shoot a TV show and what order you shoot things and proper procedures for when you take over the set. Because they were a holdover of the English system. The Kiwis broke into 2 categories. They were either pirates, really rough characters, like with the most tattoos on any crew I'd seen ever. One guy would come in with a brand new set of tattoos every Monday. He'd have some peeling, awful, sickly-looking tattoo of really twisted stuff. Or they were very stuffy, very proper. You know, when they were setting up a shot, you didn't cross in front of that lens. It's a much more of a David Lean approach to filmmaking, where the camera crew is very proper. Right, yes, and you mark it out and you put tape marks down. And yeah, but I have to say, I found that their method to be one of the most efficient methods of shooting that I saw, and it was a very good discipline. So I miss it. Well, Renee and I have crossed paths a couple of times. First on the Xena episode where Xena inhabits Autolycus's body, and...
Where is she?
I don't know. Stop that.
I'm right here.
Oh, now she's back.
Autolycus, I'm going to speak through you. Give me control.
Oh, no, wait. We have an agreement. I have a right to... Yes, Gabrielle, it's me. I want you to do something. Close your eyes. Close them tightly and think of me.
Gabrielle. Gabrielle. It's me, I'm not dead. At least not completely.
Why did you leave? There's so many things I want to say to you.
Gabrielle, you don't have to say a word. Gabrielle will always be here.
And they have there's a little kiss action that is sort of, can be interpreted however you want. But I got to put my hand on her steely bun. And I have to say, Renee was in very good shape. So good job, Renee. It was fun trying to squeeze your steely bun. Your steely bun was too steely. And then, yeah, just recently on this film called Alien Apocalypse, my buddy Josh Becker, who wrote and directed that, had done some Hercules and Xena as well. So we both were big fans of Renee, and I think she had a child and she was ready to start working again. And we thought she'd be perfect for it. So yeah, we got to make out, and Renee I'm a big fan of because, you know, it's funny, there's all these fight scenes and all these Hercules and Xena, and the lead actors have to fight, they all have to do fights, and she was the best of all of them, in my opinion. She learned her routines. She never hurt a stuntman that I know of. Because, you know, you're swinging swords and staffs. She had that stupid staff that you could take out half a crew if you did that thing incorrectly. She never forgot her routines. I mean, within a couple of takes, you could pretty much know that she got it. The rest of us, I can only speak for myself, would go clang, clang, clang. Oh, wait, don't hit me, don't hit me. What do I do next? Okay, then you'd back up and you'd do a few more swipes and then you'd somehow stumble through it. But she was always impressive because she took it seriously. And you'd see her off there practicing, and the rest of us are, you know, cracking jokes and sitting in a chair. And then later we look like idiots. The entertainment business, you can't help but be at least exposed to writing. As an actor, you review lines that are written for you. Sometimes you make tweaks to make it flow better or whatever. So you're always aware of it. I wrote a little bit as a kid. Everyone in the film business has a couple of scripts. Everyone's got 4 or 5 old scripts that they wrote. It's just sort of natural, but I decided to get more into it, started a website because I knew that that's kind of how people were going. The internet was getting bigger and bigger. So I did a website, started to do these little rants, and then a guy, a literary agent called me one time and he goes, "Hey, I read some of your rants on your page. You ever thought about writing a book?" I'm like, whatever, you know. A lot of actors have written silly books before. So we came up with an angle that was really more of the side of movies that most people don't hear about, the B movie side. Because really most people work on B movies and C movies and D movies. There's a much smaller group of people who work on A movies. There's a very small group of actors, a slightly larger group of technicians, and they're only financed by certain groups of people. Everything else is a B movie or a B TV show. So the majority of those people working on movies and actors work on something that's not the big Hollywood movies. So I thought, well, I should tell that story because it's never told. If you come in second, no one cares about you. You know, if you lose the presidential race, you might as well croak because you're going to fall off the face of the earth. No one cares. We don't care about second best. But I thought that's silly because there's a lot of people who make really good, entertaining movies that no one seems to have heard about or talked about. They might put together compilations of gross horror films or whatever, but to me, I thought, no, I think it's a valid story of all the crew, the cast. What do they have to go through to make even a low-budget movie? Because even low-budget movies can be very difficult to make. The first book that I finally put together was called If Chins Could Kill, Confessions of a B-Movie Actor, because I thought, you know, we've all heard from Charlton Heston and Judy Garland. Let's hear from somebody who's made cheeseball horror flicks, see what kind of stories that's all about. Unfortunately, I think there were enough people who could relate to it that it did well enough to write a second book. Well, one advantage in writing a book about yourself is that, you know, you just have to dig out all the reference material. And then the trick is, what aspects do you tell? I didn't want to gloss it over. So if I got divorced or lost a job or sucked at something or we got fired off of something, there's no point glossing it over because I think people they get lured to Hollywood under false pretenses. Come on, you'll be American Idol, you'll be rich, you'll be famous right away, come here. And I think it's a tragic mistake. So I wanted to offer the alternative that's not so much it's a downer book, because I've managed to make a living, but it's also not what everyone tells you Hollywood is. There's no one waiting there with a sign that says, "Bruce Campbell, waiting for you, Hollywood." They don't give a rat's ass whether you show up or not. Make Love the Bruce Campbell Way is the next book after Chins, and it's a chance to do some fiction. Because I got to thinking, well, I haven't done enough between the first book and I can't write another autobiography because I haven't done enough. So we decided to concoct a story that's fiction where I play myself. So it's a little bit of a mockumentary in book form. And having been in so many B movies, the book is about my chance to finally be in an A movie against Richard Gere, Renee Zellweger, directed by Mike Nichols for Paramount, produced by Robert Evans. It's a huge movie, and I get the third lead in it, and it all kind of goes to hell in a handcart. So I can't tell you anymore because I'd have to kill you. I sort of realized that, you know, you direct and you get behind the scenes and you start to become more of a filmmaker over the years, that there's other things you can do with those skills. So my wife and I we're working on a documentary now called A Community Speaks. It's all about public land use and what's it all about? What can you do on public land? What have they done on public land? Because it comprises, 200 million acres in the country. So I think people could be interested in what happens on it. So that's really all that is a matter of not so much grandstanding, because we're trying not to take an issue. We're trying to tell a whole complete story. But it's a matter of just taking our filmmaking abilities and apply them in other areas that aren't as silly or aren't as dramatic or frivolous or whatever. That it's just another way to apply our skills like anybody else. It's funny that that my wife's documentary Extras will be in this compilation of as a DVD extra. I actually think it's perfect. It's sort of a hidden gem that no one's really seen, that was shot back in I think like '98 or something, right at the height of these shows. And what's funny about it is that Lucy and Renee are the extras in this piece because it's all about the background performers. You finally get to hear from people who are not allowed to speak. And I thought it was a very interesting take, and there's one sequence in it where they're showing these extras, and you just see Lucy and Renee walk by in the background having a dialogue scene, and they were just treated like extras. It was very entertaining, and of course, I'm the idiot director. I was directing at that time, so they interviewed me in it of my take on extras. So it was fun to finally see it get put in because I think it's something that will give people a really good behind-the-scenes approach. I'll have to say the concept of a dream project is a little dangerous because that means you're very obsessive. I suppose you could say The Man with the Screaming Brain would be a dream project, but it wound up being mostly nightmare. So the dream aspect of it is rather shrunken by the time you actually get to make it. I think the trick is you've got to make whatever you're doing at that time into your dream project. You have to somehow mold it if you can. If you don't like the script, try and work on that, get that a little better. Try and work with a director to create something out of whatever your part is, because that's all you're going to get. You're going to get what you get as an actor. So I think the trick is you better kind of make as much lemonade as you can, because 50% of the time you're getting a lemon. Boy, top B movies. I like them for different reasons. So it's some reason that I would like a movie might be different than a fan. I like the Evil Dead series because they're very creative and working with Sam Raimi, but I don't like them physically. I don't like to think about that aspect. Shows like Xena and Hercules, I think were really a lot of fun because you could inhabit a character for 5 years. And that's where it gets fun, because then you try new things, and over the course of time, they're going to have you doing something that you're going to enjoy most of the time. And the working environment there was very good as well. So I balance it all with how is the overall experience. So for me, I guess I'd say something like Bubba Hotep would be a good top 5 experience. The Evil Dead films, a cool little film, Running Time. There was a black and white crime drama that's shot all in real time in one take. The whole movie's one shot, which is really ambitious for a movie that cost about $110,000. So every so often you run across these cool little independent things that are well worth doing, and there's more coming. Yeah, I got a letter one time with a high school tassel in it, and it was a kid who wanted me to have his graduation tassel because without watching this show that I was in, he would have killed himself. And that's where you go, yeesh. It's a little scary, but you're also glad that maybe you helped somebody out. So that's about the best of it. That someone can go, yeah, he helped me kill Friday nights for 20 years. Or we had a good group of friends over and we'd have a marathon here, or movies or something. They're not lighting buildings on fire. So anything I can do to help society, just remain calm at all times. There's a couple things coming down the pike. I decided to go back and do another Disney film. So there's a wacky, fun-loving Disney film called Sky High that's coming out soon with Kurt Russell. He's in another Disney movie. I think the first one he did was about 40 years ago. Then I have a new book, Make Love to Bruce Campbell, coming out. Man with the Screaming Brain will eventually hit DVD in the fall of '05. And then another interesting film called The Woods is coming out, where I get to play fathers in horror films now. Originally I'm the young guy with an axe. Now I'm the older dad whose daughter has to go through it all. So that's a neat, really weirdo movie directed by a cool filmmaker, Lucky McKee. And then a couple of movies I'm going to start. With DVDs, more and more companies are making movies now, so I'm really excited. There was a weird drought period where it was hard to get financing for low-budget stuff because you either had like Spider-Man, which is $100 million, or you had a movie that was $250,000. There was really nothing in between. DVDs have gotten so popular now, from this one you're watching right now, for example, that companies are able to finance movies, and I think it's fantastic because the more entities that are financing movies, the more interesting range of stuff you'll get. Hallmark is making movies now. Sci-Fi Channel is making movies. It's exciting because at first, yeah, they don't pay you diddly to do it, but it's a whole new studio, really. And with how satellite is sort of fracturing, we're all going to be working for little teeny studios. So the more the merrier. Instead of having 4 studios, now there's 1,000 studios. They're just little now. But soon they're going to grow, like Fox. Everyone laughed at Fox at first. No, you're the 4th network. No, you're not. Yes, they are. They're here to stay. So I think it's been very interesting to see as media changes, as technology changes, how industry is changing. And I think it's going in the right direction. What's weird, I don't think any actor on the planet can predict where they will go or where they will wind up. I've got actor friends who are in the same position they were in 30 years ago, saying the same things, grousing about the same stuff, and they haven't done anything. I've had other actors who complain that they work too much and their family's falling apart, you know, but they got heaps of dough. So I think the trick is you just got to kind of go with it. If you think your family's falling apart, then maybe you shouldn't work as much. If you can't, you know, pay your electric bill, maybe you better figure something else to do. I've managed to make a living and live where I want, and my wife still talks to me. My kids sort of know who I am, so I'm okay with it.